Hey YouTube, thought I'd finally get serious about actually making some videos, and thought I'd start off with something a little bit simple. At least the argument's simple. It's a matter of really kind of absorbing it fully, because if you don't absorb each step, then it's hard to really gear your mind in this way of thinking about reality, and you might end up coming up with arguments that this kind of a human tendency to come up with arguments that are inconsistent with the original analysis, and you really have to kind of reconcile yourself to these basic facts that we know about perception. And I've kind of been developing this from a young age, and probably even when I was a kid, started thinking through this stuff. So let's just get started. Basically, there are some interesting issues about sensory perception that we're going to get into the brain. But to start off with, we all know that we're not actually seeing things. We're seeing light bouncing off of things. So we know that things are certain colors because certain wavelengths are reflected back while others are absorbed. And so everything you see is light. You're seeing light. You're not seeing actual objects. So another aspect of sensory perception is that when you're touching an object, it's electrons in your fingertips, for instance, repelling electrons in whatever it is, a tabletop or whatever, and the different textures are due to the different patterns of the object, the way that the molecules are arranged on the fundamental level, so that, basically, like paper is made of wood grain, and if you think through it, it's kind of a bumpy surface at the kind of a minuscule, like a minute level. So that's basically what touch comes down to. It's sort of almost an illusion itself. It seems like when you're grabbing an object, you're actually your fingertips are repelling. So those are some interesting aspects of perception just on that level. But what really rocked my world when I was young, I fully absorbed this concept that your eyes are taking in light, but your eyes aren't actually what are seeing. These signals are communicated to the brain, and your brain is interpreting these signals and producing the output. And we know that the subconscious crunches a lot more than what even the conscious mind kind of perceives. So basically, when I realized is that I was walking around inside of my brain. I remember distinctly walking down a hallway and thinking, oh my god, I'm walking around in my brain, and I almost felt the earth shifting underneath my feet just thinking about it. And you may or may not have that sort of feeling. Some people maybe are just automatically geared toward thinking that way. But just basically the whole this argument just rests upon acknowledging that fact and fully absorbing the fact that is true. And you may still believe that there are things, that external realities beyond perception, but the fact is all of your perceptions are happening inside of your brain. Thus, the next step here is that everything you've ever perceived from your birth has always been inside of your brain. Everything that you know about the universe has been inside of your brain, from your acknowledgement of your mother and all the warmth that you received from her, and your dad or whatever family setup you had, or your first attempts to walk. Everything was happening inside of your brain. And then your first knowledge about what sight actually is, that was happening inside of your brain. Your knowledge of the Big Bang, evolution, cosmos, planetary motions, history, psychology, philosophy, science, everything has always been inside of your brain. And whether you believe that there's something behind all of it or not, whether perception is the end of it, still, all the perceptions that you have been inside of your brain. And if you need to go take a walk outside for a minute and just absorb this fact that even all of nature, everything, all the perceptions you have of nature are happening inside of your brain. Now, the next step in this is a little more rattling, perhaps, in that the brain and all that we know about it is a perception. I mean, everything, even the measurements of brain, are not only the direct perception of the brain, but MRI scans and what all the studies that have been done on the brain have been happening. All these studies, all these perceptions, and all studies and measurements are based on perceptions, have been happening inside brains. So everything that you've ever experienced, including your brain, has been inside of your brain. So how do you know that you have a brain? Because of perceptions inside the brain. So the whole thing is circular because you're saying, the brain is the basis for the brain, which is the basis for the brain, which is the basis for the brain. And it's in an infinite regress. Now, this means that any material, so a person who believes that there is material reality is taking it on faith. They just simply believe, maybe they believe it's self-evident. Now, one refutation to the philosopher George Berkeley, was that the guy moved a stone and said, there's my refutation. Material reality exists. But that's no refutation at all, because nothing is self-evident except for qualia, which qualia are like colors and shapes and so forth. And all of that, that's irreducible. I mean, it's just a reducible sensation, and the belief that there is something beyond it is actually kind of relatively recent in human history. Throughout most of history, people just thought of things in a functional way, just how, action and reaction. So this is kind of a new idea, actually, and it's kind of been obliterated by quantum physics, if you want to be totally honest. So those are some additional arguments to buttress it, but basically all you need to realize in this thought experiment is that the basis for believing in material reality is circular, and is the thought, the viewpoint, the conclusion that material reality exists is circular. Thank you very much.